Okay, here is part 2 of the Tisha B'Av Shir this year. This is Tafshin Ayin Hey 5775, 2015, where Tisha B'Av, the date of the 9th B'Av, falls out on Shabbos. So we observe the Tisha B'Av fast on the 10th of Av this year. One day later, it's pushed off, and as a result of that, there's a number of halachos that apply and that are a little bit different this year. So I just wanted to do a very, very quick run through of that. Being that this is a halacha crash course, I don't want to divert again to a hashkafa topic, but I just want to make the following point. I just had a thought that Tisha B'Av, we know in the future is going to be a navi. The navi tells us in the future is going to be a chag. It's going to turn into a day of simcha, a day of eating and drinking and singing, zmiros. And I just thought that it's an interesting thing. We say Shabbos is me'ein olam haba. And this year, it's like really, there's a bechina here, there's an element of a real me'ein olam haba that this year we get to celebrate on Tisha B'Av. And so I'm sure that's something meaningful in Shemayim, that we get to turn Tisha B'Av into a yontif this year because it coincides with Shabbos. But as a result of this, there's a number of halachos that come into effect. The first being a number of things that we don't do. There's a number of halachos that in a normal year apply on Erev Tisha B'Av. Already from midday Erev Tisha B'Av, a person is not supposed to go on walks and not supposed to learn parts of Torah, learn Torah and different things. Those halachos don't apply this year. On Shabbos, even though it's Erev Tisha B'Av, so a person is allowed to do any of these things. And the fact that it's the Shabbos overrides the halachos that would normally kick in at that time. Sorry about that. The most significant being is that every year we have a halacha of a suda mafsekes. There's a halacha that right before Tisha B'Av, there's a special suuda that we have sitting on the floor with bread and ashes. I'm not going to go through the halachos now. And this year we don't have that. In fact, the Mishnah Berurah writes that Shalashudis, even though this year again Tisha B'Av is on Shabbos, and Shalashudis is the time that even Erev Tisha B'Av would be that we would be eating the Suda Mafsekes, and the Tisha B'Av, and the Mishnah Berurah writes, no, a person can eat even a Sudas Shlomo Melech B'Shaito, even a grand feast like Shlomo Melech on Tisha B'Av afternoon. And like I said, learning Torah and all of these things are permissible. In fact, I'll be giving a shir Tisha B'Av afternoon on Shabbos, though Shabbos the 9th of Av afternoon in Pesach this year, if anybody's around. So that those halachos don't apply, and there's no halacha this year of a suda mafsekes. So the thing is, how does the fast begin then? Because Shabbos, we know Shabbos ends at Tzeis Kochavim when the stars come out, right? We can't do malacha, we can't ever do any work after Shabbos, turn on any lights or anything until after the stars come out. But we know that the fast begins already at sunset, already from the time that the sun sets, which is in some places could be an hour before the stars come out, or 30, 40, 50 minutes depending on where you live. So it's a little bit of a delicate situation, and because on the one hand you're not allowed to do anything on Shabbos that is an overt sign of mourning. You're not allowed to overtly mourn on Shabbos, but on the other hand, you're not allowed to do things that are overtly breaking the fast either. So the halach is as follows: from the time of Shkia Sachama, from sunset on Shabbos afternoon. Okay, this means after your Shabbos day meal and your Shabbos afternoon and Shabbos party and Sudah Shlishit. Now it's coming to sunset Shabbos afternoon. From that point onwards, there may be no more washing, no more eating, no more drinking. However, if a person at that point is wearing leather shoes, you should not change them right away, because changing out of those leather shoes is like a sign of Avelos, and you're not allowed to do an overt sign of Avelos, an active sign of Avelos on Shabbos. So you don't change out of the leather shoes until Shabbos is over. What most shuls do is they postpone Ma'ariv on Motzei Shabbos this year. They'll make Ma'ariv, usually they'll make Ma'ariv right when Shabbos ends, or sometimes even a little bit before. This year they'll make Ma'ariv a little bit later so that people can be home, take off their shoes, change out of their Shabbos clothing, because you're not allowed to wear Shabbos clothing just like during the 9 days, and certainly on Tisha B'Av, so a person has to change out of their Shabbos clothing, change out of their leather shoes, and then go to Shul for Ma'ariv and Eicha, and the few kinos that we say at night. Okay, so that's important to realize. Again, from sunset onwards, we're not allowed to eat, we're not allowed to drink, we're not allowed to wash and those types of things. But wearing shoes, and Shabbos clothing, we don't change until Shabbos ends proper. Likewise, you're not allowed to bring your Tisha B'Av shoes with you to Shul. Let's say you want to walk to Shul on Shabbos, and you'll change your shoes and your clothing. Let's say you're not wearing Shabbos clothing, you'll change them. So you're not allowed to do that, because carrying those shoes is preparing for after Shabbos on Shabbos, which is prohibited. Okay, so we have to wait till after Shabbos is over, and then change out of our shoes, change out of our clothing, and then go to Shul at that time. Now, additionally, another thing that's funny this year is that we can't make Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos, right? Usually we make Havdalah right after after Shabbos, and this year we can't do that because Havdalah involves drinking. But we know that in Havdalah there's a number of components. It's not just Havdalah on the coast, but there's also, we make a bracha on a candle, and we also make a bracha on the besamim. So the way that works this year is as follows. The bracha of Havdalah, like Hamavdul, Ben Kodesh L'chol, Ben Or L'choshech, etc., and the bracha of Borei Pri Agafen, we say on Sunday night this year, after Tisha B'Av, after the 10th of Av, after we fast, on Sunday night, that's when we're going to make Havdalah. And in fact, the person's not allowed to eat or drink until after that. On Motzei Shabbos, right, on the night when the fast is beginning, so when Shabbos ends, we make the bracha of Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh. We light 2 candles, or our Havdalah candle, and we make the bracha simply Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh, men, women. If the man is at home, he makes it for everybody. Sometimes men will hear the bracha said in shul, and if a woman wasn't in shul, then she has to make the bracha for herself at home. But we do not make the bracha on besamim. There's no besamim when Tisha B'Av falls out on Motzei Shabbos, and the Havdalah itself we push off until Sunday night, and that's when we make Havdalah and drink the grape juice, and the person again can't eat until then. Another difference between this year and other years is in most years on Motzei Tisha B'Av, a number of the restrictions still apply. On Motzei Tisha B'Av, a person's not allowed to get a haircut until the next day, until the next day at Chatzos, the 10th at Chatzos at midday. A person's not allowed to get a haircut. They're not allowed to do laundry. They're not allowed to eat meat and wine. So this year it's not like that. Because Tisha B'Av is pushed off and Sunday is already the 10th, so those extra elements of mourning, most of them do not apply at night, the exception being meat and wine. In other words, on the night of Tisha B'Av, Sunday night of this year, after we make Havdalah, so we drink the grape juice, we're out of the grape juice for Havdalah, but there's no more meat and wine allowed that night. However, we are allowed to listen to music, we are allowed to do laundry, we're allowed to shower, we're allowed to get haircuts. All of that is allowed to be done on Sunday night. Me'er Hashem, none of this will apply. We'll have a real Yontif on Tisha B'Av Shabbos this year. We won't need to know about any of this. And okay, Mashiach should be with us. Amen.